Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, and today's video is a big one because I'm done buying watches. Yes, you heard that right. Done. Full stop. End of story. Period. And the reason being, I find myself in the incredibly fortunate position of having now acquired every watch I've ever wanted to have in my collection. So unless something absolutely earth-shattering comes along, or I someday find myself with the means to drop $50,000 on a full gold day date, I am done. In addition to that, as you may have seen in my last video, I've also now sold off all the watches that I just hadn't worn in a while and didn't see myself wanting to wear now that I have the watches that I do. And what that's left me with is a really solid collection of 8 luxury watches that I really do feel are all that I need to have going forward. And so what I wanted to do today is take you on a tour of my small but wonderful collection. Some of these you've seen before, some of them are new, and one of them that you have seen before has had a major glow up. So with that, let's get into the watch tour of my permanent collection. We start here with my Tag Heuer Formula 1 chronograph in stainless steel and black ceramic, and I know, this is the farthest thing from the pinnacle of haute horology, but this was my first premium watch of any kind and was my present to myself for my 21st birthday. And this was a big deal because at the time, I was working my way through university in retail at Bloomingdale's, so I did get a significant employee discount, which I believe brought my out-of-pocket costs to under $1,000. But still, on that kind of salary while paying for school and just starting out in life, this was a major, major splurge. But I bought it, and 21-year-old Josh thought that he was the king of the world for having such an expensive and luxurious watch with the Tag Heuer name. And you know what? I'm glad I did, because it's one of the only things that I've kept with me from that time in my life that I still use on a regular basis today, and every time I do, it brings back so many wonderful memories of that much simpler and younger time in my life. Now, had I known more about watches at the time, I definitely would have gone for something with an automatic movement and maybe a better brand name. But the reason I wanted this tag was because it was the closest thing and the best that I could afford to what was my dream watch at the time, the Chanel J12 in black ceramic. And although sometimes dreams do come true, as you'll see in the next chapter, I do still love this tag, and it actually still remains unique in my collection for the fact that it's a chronograph. Now, something to know about me is that I am complication averse, meaning I cannot stand when a watch has so many things going on that I'll never use and only make it harder to read the time. So I'll never have a watch with a skeleton case, and except for this tag, I don't own or wish to own any other chronographs. Now, I don't mind the complication here because the overall design remains super clean and, again, very J12. Not to mention the fact that this is from the Tag Heuer Formula 1 collection, and with a name like that, I think it'd be kind of silly for it not to have a proper lap timer. Coming back to the present, we move on to my 2 current everyday watches, the Hermes Cape Cod Automatic and the dream watch that teenage Josh would be over the moon that we finally have, the Chanel J12 Phantom in black. And here I shall pause for the hate that will inevitably make itself known in the comments because these are polarizing watches, in that they're from the preeminent French fashion houses and not a prestigious Swiss watchmaker. But those who know will know that these are as respectable, if not more so, than many pieces from the legacy Swiss watchmakers, because both of these can accurately claim to be Swiss-made with manufacture or in-house movements. You see, despite Chanel and Hermes being headquartered at 24 Faubourg Saint-Honoré and 31 Rue Cambon in Paris, the Cape Cod Automatic is made at Atelier de Hermes Horlogerie in Les Neumont and employs the manufacture caliber H1912 produced by Vaucher, of which La Montre Hermes is a part owner. The Chanel J12, meanwhile, is effectively a ceramic Tudor Black Bay 58. It's produced at Chanel Manufacture in La Chaux-du-Fonds, and Tudor and Chanel are both part owners of Kinesi, who manufactures movements for Tudor, Chanel, and Norqain. Thus, the Chanel 12.1, Tudor MT5402, and Norqain NN20.1 are all basically the same movement, and actually, Chanel's is well regarded as the best finished of all 3. The J12, by the way, also won the Ladies' Watch Prize at the 2019 Le Grand Prix de Horlogerie, or GPHG, so there's real pedigree here. But to be completely honest with you, I actually love that these are fashion watches from fashion houses because that fashion-first approach that Chanel and Hermes can take gives them the license to play with design in ways that Rolex, Tudor, Omega, Grand Seiko, and others just wouldn't dare. On the Cape Cod, I love how the iconic shape of Hermes's chaîne d'ancre, or anchor chain, is interpreted in the shape of the case and these super funky numerals. And as is the case with everything at Hermes, you can customize your Cape Cod with every kind of leather, canvas, or reptile strap that you could possibly imagine. I actually bought mine on the alligator Havane strap, but then swapped it out later for this beautiful natural Barenia calf strap because it made the watch slightly more casual, but infinitely more wearable. This classic combination of natural leather with the opaline dial goes with everything from the most formal to the most casual, and thus it's my everyday work watch because it can go with just about everything. The J12, meanwhile, is itself basically a mockery of the Submariner. It's a true diver's watch with 200 meters of water resistance, the same as its Black Bay 58 cousin, and the same movement, but yet is rendered in full intense black ceramic and has become iconic and enduring in its own right, in a way that honestly, Tudor's will never be. And the main reason that these are my two everyday watches is because if you're not in the know about what they are, they really do just come off as any old watch out there. Like, the general public has enough brand awareness of a Rolex that they'll immediately zero in on it as an indicator of status. But these two tend to fly way under the radar, and that's important to me because of the job that I have. Most days, I am in a downtown corporate high-rise where Rolexes are a dime a dozen, but at least once a month, I'm doing outreach with customers or our call center teams, and in both of those situations, it's just not appropriate to wear something so emblematic of a life of privilege. For those situations, my funky little Cape Cod on its Barenia leather strap fits the bill perfectly. I've had people ask if it's a fossil, and depending on who they were, sometimes I've said yes, because I don't buy these to impress others or for any kind of external validation. I buy them because I love them, and so it simply doesn't matter to me if someone thinks my $6,500 Hermes Cape Cod is a $200 fossil. Now, on that note, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that as much as the J12 was the dream watch, and that I am completely and head over heels in love with it, this is the one piece in my collection that I just couldn't bring myself to buy new and pay retail for. And so for the first time, I ventured out into the pre-owned watch market, and I did purchase this used. If you know the history of the J12, it's always been overly expensive for what it is. Even in its early days when it had a basic ETA movement, it was still more expensive than anything with an ETA movement should have been. And when it was reborn into a serious watch with the Tudor Canisi movement inside, the price went way up. And as of the time I'm filming this, the retail price on my 12.1 Phantom, which by the way is still a current collection model, is $8,950. Yeah, that's almost twice the price of its Black Bay 58 cousin with a current price of $4,500. Now, I happen to luck out and find this one for sale in like-new condition, 2 years old, and for less than half of its current retail price. And for what I paid, I'm more than happy with it. And the whole buying experience was a great learning experience that, yes, you can in fact buy luxury watches pre-owned and for a great deal. And last but not least, I want to just share a quick little bit of insight as I've built and grown this collection over the years. Believe it or not, of all the watches I own, these are the two that I've wanted for the longest. Both of these, the Cape Cod and the J12, were dream watches for teenage Josh. And yet, when I started making the money where I could afford to buy luxury watches on a somewhat regular basis, I felt like I was supposed to buy the serious watches first. The Omegas, the Grand Seikos, and the Rolex. And only once I had acquired all of those could I go back for these more silly, kind of oddball pieces. But once I had these, I was wearing them nonstop. Like, my sub would sit in my watch box for weeks on end because I was just having too much fun with my Hermes and Chanel. And had I bought these years earlier, I would have worn the holy living crap out of them for that entire time. So Let that be a lesson to any of y'all out there who are just embarking on your watch collecting journey. Don't pass up the ones you love just because they're not the watches that everybody says you should buy. If you love them, maybe go for them first. Right then, we move on now to dress watches, and I think the last time I did a watch collection video, I only had one of these, and that is the one that's had the glow up, so we do have a good deal to talk about here. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of Grand Seiko, and if I'm buying a dress watch, that's where I'm going. I have nothing against companies like Jaeger-LeCoultre, I just absolutely love the artistry and craftsmanship of Grand Seiko, and nothing goes better with a sharp suit than the sharp details of a Grand Seiko. First up, we have the SBGA 375 Spring Drive at midnight, and this is probably the most beautiful blue watch I've ever seen. The dial is absolutely stunning. In low light, it fades back and appears almost black, but get it under bright lights and it just comes alive with royal blue vibrance and depth. The 375 also has the iconic 44GS style case with all of its broad Zaratsu polished surfaces, which makes this whole watch appear like the most brilliant jewel. Now, the downside of Grand Seiko's literally perfect finishing is that if you wear your watches regularly and without regard as precious objects the way I do, these cases will show every little scratch, nick, and ding. And normally I don't mind that, but it does kind of bother me on this watch because it is such a gem and my most formal dress watch. That said, you can always send them in for service and request that Grand Seiko resurface the case with the original Zaratsu luster. Now, the modification I referenced earlier, and the difference that you'll see here versus in my other videos that I've done on this watch, is that I've swapped out the bracelet that it came on for this absolutely gorgeous OEM Grand Seiko crocodile strap in matching dark navy blue. I'd always thought that the 375 would look good on a leather strap of some sort, but I just didn't really know what that strap was. And then one day earlier this year, I saw a photo of the SBGY 009 that you're seeing here on screen, and that was it. I was like, shut up and take my money. And I have been so impressed with what Grand Seiko does with their crocodile straps. They are so incredibly soft, which isn't common with leathers, especially reptile skin. But Grand Seiko does something in the tanning process with these that softens up the materials here to a level where they are almost as comfortable and pliable as a good silicone strap. And listen, I love Hermes, but this Japanese croco strap makes the French alligator strap for my Cape Cod look and feel like something that you'd buy off of Temu. I've literally never felt anything quite like this. Now, with that, I should warn you that buying an OEM strap and matching buckle like I've done is not an expensive proposition. These together will run you about $700. But if, like me, you have a Grand Seiko that you wear primarily as a dress or formal watch, I think it's money well spent. Nothing, and I mean nothing, looks better with a perfectly tailored blue suit than this SBGA 375 on this navy blue strap. But what if I'm not wearing a blue suit? Well, that's when I reached for my second and most recent Grand Seiko purchase, which I was able to buy last year at the Beverly Hills boutique, the SBGA 201. Also from the Heritage Collection, this watch features Grand Seiko's absolutely stunning silk dial, sometimes referred to as the champagne dial. And believe it or not, outside of the limited edition and precious metal models, the silk dial is actually the finish that takes the most time to create in the Grand Seiko studios. To achieve this specific color and its magical ability to shift color from vibrant gold to platinum white to silver, the dial goes through a 10-step process that creates the coloring and layering of the dial, which can transform and almost appears like an iridescent precious metal. We also on this watch have the modern Grand Seiko style case, which has softer lines and a more Western look to it. Now, I love my 375 and its 44GS style case, but I think that works best on a leather strap where the case can take center stage. On a bracelet, I actually much prefer the modern style case that we have here because I find that it wears more comfortably on the wrist and makes the watch feel smaller. For reference, this 201 is a millimeter wider, taller, and in lug width than the 375. But it wears more nicely because the case actually contours to your wrist and allows the bracelet to drape more naturally. And all of that comes together to create what is probably my most versatile watch. It's dressy enough to wear with a suit, but it also works just as well with shorts and a t-shirt. So if you can only buy one watch and you need it to be a great all-rounder, this might be one to look at. And finally, although I'm sure I've talked about it enough in the past, of course, I did choose to buy both of these with the 9R65 spring drive movement. I have nothing against high beat, but if I'm buying a Grand Seiko, I want that perfectly smooth sweep of the seconds hand, which you won't find anywhere except for Grand Seiko. Their whole ethos is about tracking the quiet, constant passing of time, and there is nothing that better represents that harmony between time and nature than spring drive. Next up, we arrive at the divers, and divers are my sweet spot in the world of sporting and tool watches. Like I said at the beginning, I am complication averse, so chronographs, field watches, and even some GMTs are generally out for me. I'm just all about clean and simple and classic. And of the many, many divers I've collected and owned over the years, these are the most special. You also may have noticed by now that all of the sporting watches I own, including the J12, which I do consider to be a sports watch, all have ceramic bezels. And that's a big thing for me because I simply do not like aluminum bezel inserts. Do they work on a classic Submariner? Absolutely. But I don't want to see that on any watch made after the year 2000. And that's a big reason why I don't own any Black Bays and why I gave my Black Bay GMT to my husband. I just personally love a ceramic bezel because I think they elevate the overall look of the watch to something way more special than being just a tool watch. And each of these divers has one. We'll start with this Omega Seamaster Professional 300, and this is the first true luxury class watch that I ever bought. This watch for me marked a huge milestone because not only was it my first luxury watch, but I bought it for my 25th birthday, which also coincided with my promotion into the first senior level role in my career. And at that point, I was more financially comfortable, and I felt like this is the time that I can get into luxury watch collecting, and so I went out and spent $5,000 on my first Omega. And actually, even though it is a little bit redundant to my Submariner at this point, there is something nice about having a watch that is a true luxury item, but is also not entirely precious. Meaning, I wear this Omega everywhere and anywhere. That's not to say that I send it out to play in traffic, but I just wouldn't be nearly as upset if something happened to this versus any of the other watches here. And to be clear, if something ever were to happen to it and it were to break or get damaged in some way, I would absolutely pay whatever the cost would be to fix it. Next up, staying in the Omega family, we have my second luxury watch purchase, the Omega Planet Ocean 39 in full white ceramic. This watch marked a significant step up in my watch collecting journey as it also represented a number of firsts. It was the first watch I bought that crossed the $5,000 price point, the first watch I'd purchased with a truly in-house movement, and the first time I bought what I truly considered to be a grail watch. And I know that it might be silly to consider an Omega Diver a grail watch, but I had really, really wanted and loved the white ceramic case and dial after having bought two black watches with my Tag Formula 1 and 300 Professional. And I've said this before, but that white ceramic is truly emblematic of what I love about Omega. If you were to draw parallels between European luxury watches and European luxury cars, Rolex would be either Range Rover or Porsche. Basically, they never invent anything new. Things are nipped and tucked year in and year out, sometimes new colors are introduced, but they play it so safe that you generally can't even tell when a new generation of a product is in fact a new generation. Omega, on the other hand, is Audi, Vorsprung durch Techniking their way forward with innovative materials and never afraid to make an avant-garde, cutting-edge product that looks and feels bang up to date in the present. On this Planet Ocean, the big innovations are the 8800 cal movement, the use of liquid metal for bezel markings, and the full ceramic dial. Might it end up being less timeless than the sub that doesn't ever change? Possibly. But I love how high-tech this Planet Ocean feels, and I've owned this piece now for about 5 years, and it honestly feels just as modern and just as fresh as the day that I bought it. There's also something just so fresh and so light about having a white diver to wear to the beach and to the lake during the summer. We spend about a month or so in Hawaii every year, and on our summer trips, I always pack this Planet Ocean and my SBGA 375. And finally, to bring us home, we of course have to talk about my Rolex Submariner. Where the J12 was the dream watch of my teenage years, the Sub was my dream watch of my 20s. And this Sub is special because not only is it my first and only Rolex, but because my wonderful AD made it available to me to commemorate my 30th birthday a few years ago. I still get goosebumps thinking back to that evening right before my birthday when I got to go into my AD and take delivery of my Submariner.
Here is your Rolex.
And I think I had gotten that right before I made my last watch collection video, and so I was still firmly in the honeymoon phase, during which I didn't want to wear anything else. I remember saying something in that video about, this is my most expensive watch, but it's also my daily driver. And that was absolutely true at the time. I basically didn't take this watch off for all of 2023, which is fine because with the exception of a suit, the Sub is one of those watches that literally can go with anything and everything. It's the perfect watch for work, for the weekends, to take traveling, and to take to the beach. But as the honeymoon phase ended and I moved into the long-term committed relationship phase, it's now become one of the many great watches I own, and having bought all of the watches I've wanted, I'm able to enjoy it when the day calls for a magnificent diver. But if not, I have all these other wonderful watches, and so the Sub gets to take the day off while I go and wear something else. Do I come back to it? Absolutely. But it's no longer my everyday watch and my one and only thing that I want to wear. So that's it, guys. That's the entire collection, the permanent collection, and the collection that I intend to carry on with for the foreseeable future. I am done. Full stop. End of story. And anyway, as you can see, I've maxed out the space in my watch box, so to add something else would mean to get rid of one of these, and I simply cannot bear the thought of that at this moment in time. And let me be clear here, by the way. I don't take this for granted. I fully recognize and acknowledge the good fortune that's allowed me to have all the wonderful things that I do. And every morning, when I wake up and get myself ready and walk over to my watch box, I cherish the quiet ritual of browsing and choosing that perfect piece for the day. So yeah, that's it. I'm done, and I'm honestly so happy with the forever watches I have here, and with that, I shall thank you very much for watching, especially those of you who have come back time and time again, even though it's sometimes years between uploads here on this channel. It means the world to me, because while I don't have the time to make videos on a regular basis, this is still so much fun for me. So, I hope you enjoyed. Have an amazing day. I will talk to you guys sometime in the future, and until then, be well and take care.